The chandelier's reflection rippled across the champagne glasses like gold veins in glass. The dining room at the Nashville Country Club buzzed with low laughter and the soft clink of cutlery. I heard the hush before I saw it, a breath caught in someone's throat, a chair leg scraping too hard against the floor, and then the glint. Emerald surrounded by diamonds. My mother's ring. My name is Lauren. I'm 34 years old. And this is how my sister turned my mother's memory into a trophy, and how I turned her spotlight into her undoing. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The ring sat proudly on her left hand as she raised her champagne flute beneath the floral arch. Her fiancé smiled wide, his cuff brushing her waist. My sister didn't meet my eyes. Not once. She looked past me, over me, through me, but her thumb kept rubbing that ring like it burned, like it might vanish if she let it rest. The chatter dipped around us. Not quiet exactly, just thinner, like a wall of glass had been set between me and everyone else. Even Aunt Robin, never short on a second glass of wine or a third opinion, froze mid-toast. Her eyes flicked between me and the ring. Her mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. I didn't speak either. My throat had gone dry, and not from the champagne. My hand stayed on the linen napkin in my lap, clutching the soft fold like a rope, because that ring wasn't supposed to be hers. It wasn't just a family piece. It wasn't just vintage. It was my mother's. Worn nearly every day of her marriage. The stone was chipped slightly on one edge, something I only noticed because I used to sit beside her on the back porch tracing it while she told stories from her childhood in Kentucky. She used to joke it was her green lightning, flawed but charged with meaning. The last time I saw that ring was 2 years ago, in a velvet box labeled and sealed inside the lawyer's office off Elliston Place. I can still picture the fluorescent hum of that office, the smell of copy toner and lemon polish on old oak desks, the polite way Mr. Randall asked us to initial each page. Probate court had been messy. My mother passed quickly, pancreatic cancer that didn't blink twice. She left a detailed will, divided clearly between me and my sister Jenna, jewelry to me, furniture to her. There were tears, of course, but we both signed, we both nodded, we both promised to honor what was left of her with grace. And now here we were, 2 years later, at Jenna's engagement dinner, and she was wearing my mother's green lightning. The toast continued, hollow around me. Jenna's fiancé, Travis, thanked everyone for coming, talked about legacy and foundations of love, and some other phrases that sounded like they were plucked from a Hallmark rack at Kroger. His voice didn't crack. Not once. He was charming and polished and clueless. Then Jenna took the mic. She smiled at the crowd, then softened her expression just enough to sound vulnerable. "This ring," she began, "means more than I can explain. It's not just a symbol of our future, it's a connection to the past, to our mother, to the love she built." Her fingers brushed the ring again, deliberately this time. Her eyes flicked just once toward me, and I realized she wasn't clueless. She was baiting me. I didn't react, not then. I just set down my glass, folded my napkin, and let the silence wrap around my ribs like a corset. After the dinner, back in my car, I didn't cry. The parking lot lights buzzed overhead, cold and white, turning every car hood into a mirror. I drove home with the windows cracked, letting the chill Tennessee air sting my face. The city looked washed out, traffic lights blurred through a light drizzle, neon from a Waffle House sign pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my heels and sat on the edge of the bed for a long minute before I moved. The air smelled faintly of dryer sheets and dust. I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand and slid out the manila envelope I hadn't touched since the will was settled. Inside, photocopies. My mother's will. Probate inventory sheets, photos, notes in her handwriting, the kind of meticulous legal evidence you don't think you'll ever need to use until someone decides memory is optional and signatures are suggestions. Page 6, Item 14. 1 emerald and diamond engagement ring set in platinum inscribed on inner band LCR to be retained by elder daughter Lauren Carter for personal safekeeping. I turned the page, looked at the signature line. Jenna's name was there, just like mine, her scrawl, her checkmark. I whispered to the paper, "You knew." The words came out cracked, half breath. The next morning, rain clouds hovered low over the city. I drove to the storage unit where we'd kept Mom's things for 6 months after she passed. I remembered the keypad code without needing to check my phone. I remembered the smell of the unit before I even opened the door. dust, old cedar, and the faint scent of lavender sachets my mother used to stuff into drawers. But the velvet box was gone. Not just empty, gone. The lock on the filing cabinet had been snapped, the inventory tag peeled away. That was the moment I stopped pretending it was a misunderstanding. I didn't text her. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the car outside the unit, rain pattering on the windshield, and let the sound fill the space where outrage should have been. My hands shook, not from anger exactly, but from something deeper. Betrayal that came too slow to stop. Back home, I pulled out my phone and scrolled back to a week before the engagement dinner. Jenna had posted a photo on Instagram, one of those filtered ring reveal shots. The caption was all butterflies and candlelight emojis. I zoomed in. My stomach clenched. There it was, the emerald, the chip, the band, and in the reflection of the wine glass on the table beside her, Travis's laptop. I saved the image and sent it to myself. Then I logged into our shared family Google Drive, the one we hadn't touched since settling Mom's estate. 2 weeks ago, there had been a login from Jenna's account from an IP address near Brentwood and a download, folder, estate photos. She'd taken the pictures I'd scanned, the ones we'd uploaded for reference, the ones we agreed never to use online, and she'd used them to justify the theft. Later that night, I found a text buried in our old thread. It was from a few weeks ago. Jenna. It's just for the dinner. She won't even remember it was promised. She'd want the symbolism. Another message, this time from Travis. Will it cause drama? Jenna. Not if she knows her place. I stared at those words until the screen blurred. Knows her place. I closed the app. Then I opened a new browser tab and typed in the name of our family lawyer. Mr. Randall had been with our family since I was in middle school. The one who filed my parents' first mortgage deed in Franklin. The one who handled my grandfather's burial arrangements. He wore bow ties in July and always smelled faintly of pipe tobacco, even though he quit 20 years ago. When I called, he picked up after 2 rings. Lauren, he said, voice warm but heavy. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. So you saw the photos? I did, and I remember the will. I exhaled. Can we meet? I thought you'd never ask. The next week, we met in his office. Same leather chairs, same framed U.S. Constitution print on the wall, same faint tick of the grandfather clock that always seemed a beat too slow. He didn't push. He didn't tell me what to do. He just slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a notarized copy of the estate inventory, a certified record of the storage access log, a printout of Jenna's Instagram photo annotated with timestamps, and at the bottom, a copy of the engagement dinner guest list. If you're going to make a point, he said, adjusting his glasses, make sure the right people are watching. I looked up at him. Do you think Mom would be ashamed of me? He shook his head. I think she'd be proud you waited. The drive home was quiet except for the rhythmic click of the blinker at every red light. Nashville looked softer that evening, streetlights haloed through drizzle, brake lights glowing like embers. I thought about my mother's voice, calm and amused whenever Jenna and I fought as kids. Let her have the spotlight, Lauren, she used to say. It burns out faster than you think. That night, I called Aunt Robin. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice still rough from wine and gossip. Do you remember, I asked, who the emerald was supposed to go to? Your mother was clear, she said immediately. It was for you. Jenna always had her heart set on the armoire instead. Why do you ask? Because at the dinner, she wore it. Silence. Then a sigh that sounded like surrender. I thought maybe I imagined it, she said softly. But I saw. And so did Travis's mother. My eyebrows lifted. His mother? She leaned over and asked me where the ring came from. I said, ask your son. She didn't smile after that. I hung up, the line clicking into silence. The apartment seemed too still, like the air itself was waiting, and then I made a plan, one that would unfold with soft lighting, gentle music, and precision. The night after the dinner, sleep didn't come easy. The street light outside my window buzzed faintly, its orange glow cutting through the blinds and thin bars that slid across the ceiling like slow-moving ghosts. The air was heavy, that kind of pre-summer Nashville humidity that makes your hair stick to your neck and your thoughts feel syrup thick. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. The chandeliers shimmered dancing across that emerald. The small tremor in Jenna's voice during her toast. The proud, oblivious look on Travis's face. The way his hand rested on her back, steady and certain, as if nothing in the world could shake the perfection they'd built. But the perfection was mine. I flipped my pillow, turned onto my side, and tried counting backward from 100. The sound of distant traffic seeped through the open crack of my window. Semis droning down I-65, a siren fading toward the river, the occasional laughter of someone leaving a late bar. It all mixed together like static. I stared at the dark ceiling and tried to decide if anger or disbelief hurt worse. By 4 a.m., I gave up. I padded to the kitchen barefoot, the tile cool under my feet, and brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint. The smell filled the apartment, bitter and grounding. I poured it into a chipped mug, the one Mom bought me when I first moved out, and sat at the table as the first hint of dawn bled through the blinds. The laptop screen glowed pale blue, the cursor blinking like it had something to say. I opened the probate folder again. My mother's signature looped across the bottom of each scanned page, steady, deliberate, beautiful even in illness. I remembered the day she'd signed it. The hospice nurse humming some gospel tune under her breath, the late winter light spilling through lace curtains. Mom's voice soft but certain. "It's not about fairness, sweetheart, it's about intention." I whispered to the empty room, "And I intend to finish what you started." By 7, the city had woken up. I showered, dressed, and sat at my desk with a new kind of focus. The email to Mr. Randall had been sitting in my drafts all night. Subject, follow-up, ring ownership. I read it once more, hit send, and exhaled. To distract myself, I scrolled through Jenna's social media. Engagement photos framed in golden filters, her captions dripping with borrowed wisdom. Love that lasts. Legacy of faith. Her life looked immaculate, airbrushed, curated, perfectly false. The comments were predictable. "So happy for you, you deserve it all, your mom would be proud." My jaw ached from clenching. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with Mr. Randall's name. I answered before the first ring finished. "Lauren," he said, voice even, careful, like he was stepping into a confession. "I've reviewed the estate terms. You're the sole legal owner of that ring. It can't be loaned, sold, or gifted without your written consent." "So she's in violation," I said flatly. "Yes, but there's something else you should see." A pause, long enough to make my stomach twist. "Your sister accessed a trust transfer 6 months ago. A small one, $10,000, labeled wedding preparation." My breath hitched. "From the estate?" "Correct. That money wasn't hers to use, not without your authorization." The room felt smaller. The hum of the refrigerator grew loud enough to notice. "Send me everything." He did. Within an hour, the documents hit my inbox. PDFs, receipts, timestamps. I opened them slowly, page by page. There it was. A wire transfer, my mother's estate account, $10,000 moved to a joint account under Jenna Carter and Travis Howard. Signature line, not mine. She hadn't just taken a ring. She'd stolen cash. The floral arch, the caterer, maybe even that country club deposit, they were all funded by Mom's legacy. It wasn't sentiment anymore. It was theft. That weekend, I drove to Franklin. The 2-lane road wound past fields dotted with barns and black-eyed Susans. The closer I got, the heavier the air smelled. Cut grass, wet earth, honeysuckle on the fence line. Grandma's porch came into view, its paint peeling a little more each year. The same wind chime from my childhood hung crooked, still playing its off-key tune when the breeze passed. Grandma sat in her rocker with a quilt across her knees, a crossword half done on her lap. She looked up as I climbed the steps. "You look like your mama when you're angry," she said, squinting through her glasses. "Do I?" I managed a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Same jawline," she said, tapping her chin. "Same quiet before the thunder." I sat on the porch step beside her. The boards creaked beneath me. Somewhere down the hill, a dog barked twice and went silent. "I need to tell you something," I said. She didn't move, just nodded for me to go on. So I did. About the ring, the dinner, the forged transfer, the humiliation knotted under every polite smile. When I finished, she folded the crossword closed and set it aside. She always wanted what you had, honey, not because she needed it, because you never asked for it. I stared out at the yard where sunlight caught the edge of a rusty birdbath. What do I do? Whatever lets you sleep again. Her voice softened, but her gaze was sharp. And if you do it clean. No screaming, no begging, just truth. We sat for a while, the cicadas building their evening chorus. When I finally left, she squeezed my hand. Your mama raised you steady. Don't lose that now. On the drive back, I passed a wedding venue billboard glowing above the highway. Forever starts here. The irony made me laugh out loud, the sound brittle in the small car. Forever, I thought, starts with forgery. That night, I opened my laptop again. A blank folder blinked on my desktop. I renamed it Jenna, Evidence. One by one, I dragged in the files. The Instagram post, the probate scan, the trust withdrawal record, screenshots of her texts. Each click felt like sliding another card into a stacked deck she'd never see coming. When the folder filled, I sat back and dialed Aunt Robin. She picked up halfway through the first ring. You remember that ring speech? I asked. Her laugh crackled through the line. Hard to forget. I think the entire club held its breath. Would you put that in writing? A pause. You mean a statement? Just your recollection. Nothing dramatic, just truth. If it helps you sleep at night, yes. 2 days later, an email arrived, a short letter signed Robin Ellis confirming the ring, the speech, and that she'd seen my reaction firsthand. I printed it, the ink still warm, and slid it into the folder. Next step, the storage unit. That one needed proof, something physical. I drove out mid-afternoon. The Franklin Storage Center sat between a feed store and an auto shop. The asphalt cracked like a road map. Inside the front office, a ceiling fan turned lazily above stacks of boxes. Ray, I called. Raymond looked up from a clipboard, his face lighting with recognition. Well, I'll be. Lauren Carter. Ain't seen you since y'all cleared your mama's unit. Unit 114, I said. You still got the sign-in log? He scratched his chin. Sure do. What's this about? Just need to verify something for insurance. He flipped through a spiral ledger. March 4th, Jenna Carter said she needed to check a box for sentimental things. He turned the book toward me, her signature curled neatly on the line. I snapped a quick photo. Thanks, Ray. Everything okay? He asked. Will be. The drive back felt shorter. The sky was bruising purple over the hills, headlights stretching long across the pavement. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the wipers sweeping away a thin drizzle. I wasn't angry anymore. I was steady, calculating. That night, a text buzzed my phone. Unknown number at first glance, then the preview name sank in. Travis's mom. Lauren, I hope I'm not overstepping, but that ring, your mother's? I stared at the message, then typed, yes. Another bubble appeared. I thought so. It didn't sit right with me. Travis doesn't know the details, but I'd like to understand. I hesitated, then, you'll see soon enough. After a pause, her reply came. Whatever you're planning, make sure he's there. I smiled at the screen. Oh, he will be, I whispered. The next morning, I printed everything, stapled, labeled, sealed inside a slim, cream-colored envelope. On the front, in block letters, for toast. The engagement reception was set for Saturday at the same country club, same chandeliers, same crowd. Jenna texted me midweek like nothing had happened. Hope you can come. We're doing a slideshow. I typed back, wouldn't miss it. The days leading up felt like waiting out a storm. I didn't rehearse. I didn't need to. The truth was its own script. When Saturday came, the afternoon air shimmered with heat. I wore a dark green dress, not to match the emerald, but as a quiet reminder. The drive to the club was lined with magnolias in bloom, their petals thick and waxy under the sun. From the parking lot, I could already hear music spilling across the terrace, a string quartet tuning up, laughter rolling like soft thunder. Inside, everything glittered. Peonies, candles, crystal flutes catching the light. Jenna moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her hair swept into curls, her diamond earrings catching every flash from the photographers' phones. Travis hovered close, beaming. They looked like a magazine spread come to life. I found my seat near the back, purse resting against my ankle. The envelope inside felt heavy, almost alive. Mr. Randall's voice echoed in my mind. Make sure the right people are watching. They were. When the clinking of glasses began, Jenna lifted hers high. The chandelier scattered light over her like applause. Tonight, she said, voice bright, I just want to thank everyone who's been part of our journey. My pulse slowed. The air thickened. Every sense sharpened. The violins tremor, the scent of champagne, the faint rustle of silk dresses. Especially my sister, she continued. Lauren, you've been such a role model. This ring is a reminder of everything Mom taught us about love and family. Applause. Laughter. Heads turned toward me. I rose from my chair. If you don't mind, Jenna, I said, my voice even, I'd like to add something about that ring. Her smile froze, then shifted into a practiced laugh. Of course, Lauren, you always have the best stories. The chandelier light flashed against the edge of the envelope as I drew it from my purse. This one, I said, holding it up, isn't a story. It's history. Documented history. The room went still. I didn't rush. I walked slowly toward the front through rows of pressed linen and people holding their breath. Champagne flutes trembled mid-air, beads of condensation sliding down their stems. The faint scrape of my heels on the polished hardwood filled the silence that the string quartet left hanging. One last stray note fluttering before dying in the air. Jenna was still smiling, but her hands had dropped to her sides. One hovered near the ring, her fingers twitching like she could somehow protect it from what was coming. The floral arch above us smelled faintly of roses and eucalyptus. I stopped beneath it and reached for the mic without asking. The metal was cool, the wire hum cutting softly through the speakers. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, I said, my voice steady. But sometimes history doesn't ask for permission. A few polite chuckles rippled through the crowd, reflex more than humor, mostly silence. I lifted the envelope, the cream paper catching the chandelier light. I opened it slowly, each tear of the seal deliberate, like peeling something sacred apart. This ring, I said, pointing to her hand, belonged to our mother. Most of you know that. What you don't know is that it was left to me, legally, in writing, with witnesses. A murmur rolled through the tables. Jenna's posture stiffened. Travis blinked once, confusion knitting his brow. His mother, seated near the front, sat up straighter, her hand tightening around her clutch. I pulled out the first paper. Probate file 2184337C, filed in Davidson County, I read aloud. Page 6, item 14. One emerald and diamond engagement ring set in platinum inscribed LCR to be retained by Lauren Carter. That's me. I turned the page with slow precision. This, I said, tapping the bottom, is her signature, Jenna's, acknowledging that fact. No disputes, no errors. The room changed temperature. You could feel the air thicken, like before a summer storm. No phones out yet, just people staring. Lauren, Jenna began, I'm not finished. Her mouth closed hard. Travis looked from her to me, caught in a moment that stripped all the party lights of their warmth. Some things carry more than monetary value, I continued. This ring isn't just stone and metal. It was worn by our mother every day of her marriage. It carries stories, ones you can't rewrite with a pretty speech. I let the words settle. You could almost hear them sink. But it doesn't stop there. I drew out the next page and lifted it for everyone to see. Paper trembled slightly under the AC vent. This, I said, is a copy of a trust transfer. $10,000, pulled from our mother's estate account 6 months ago. Unauthorized, labeled wedding preparations. Gasps, small but sharp. A woman dropped her napkin. Travis's mother leaned forward, lips tightening. There's only one problem, I said, scanning the page. That money required dual approval. My signature, which, I looked directly at Jenna, I never gave. Jenna's shoulders stiffened. Her eyes darted to Travis, then to the exit, then back to me. So the ring, I said quietly, it's not just stolen, it's evidence. I turned, meeting Travis's eyes. Travis, I don't know what she's told you, but your engagement ring, this party, even that slideshow, they weren't built on family legacy. They were paid for with someone else's grief. The chandeliers flickered as if the room itself had flinched. Travis's face drained of color. His hand slipped from Jenna's back and hung at his side. He looked like a man realizing the ground he'd been standing on was made of glass. And then, finally, her mask cracked. "It wasn't like that," Jenna said, her voice shaking. "It was symbolic. Mom would have wanted—" "Don't," I said, quiet but sharp. "Don't speak for her. You already silenced her once. You don't get to rewrite her will because you liked how the story sounded in your voice." A murmur rippled through the tables. Silverware clinked, then stilled. I lifted the final sheet, Aunt Robin's signed statement. "There are witnesses. There are dates. There are records. What you did wasn't sentimental. It was calculated." The words came out measured, each one slicing through the stillness. Then something unexpected happened. I stepped closer. The smell of her perfume, jasmine and nerves, hit me like a memory I didn't want. I extended my hand. "Give it back." For a moment, she didn't breathe. Her pupils widened. The chatter behind us dissolved into a hush so deep you could hear the hum of the ceiling lights. She blinked once, twice. Looked at Travis, pleading silently. He didn't move. "Is it true?" he asked her. Jenna's lip trembled. "Did you take the money too?" Her throat bobbed. "It was just sitting there. I didn't think you'd—" "You didn't think at all," he said, voice flat. She flinched. He turned to me, eyes heavy. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." I nodded once, calm, cold. Jenna still hadn't moved. I kept my hand out. The silence stretched until it hurt. "If you don't take it off," I said evenly, "I will." That did it. Her fingers shook as she slid the ring from her hand. The metal made a faint click against her knuckle before slipping free. Her skin was pale where it had rested. She laid it in my palm like a confession. I closed my hand around it. The metal was warm, almost alive. A weight and a release all at once. No one clapped. No one dared. The only sound was the faint pop of a champagne bubble bursting somewhere in the back. I turned, walked back to my seat. My pulse had slowed to a strange calm. The string quartet didn't start again. No one raised another toast. Conversation dissolved into whispers. The party had folded in on itself, like a tent collapsing, after the wind leaves it. 10 minutes later, Travis and his mother slipped quietly into a side room. 15 after that, Jenna followed, mascara smudged under her eyes, shoulders shaking. I stayed seated long enough to finish my water. The condensation had left a perfect circle on the white linen. When I finally stood, the air smelled faintly of wilting flowers and too sweet champagne. The night outside the club was cool. My reflection in the window looked composed, almost serene. Back in my apartment, I set the ring on the kitchen counter beneath the soft yellow light. It glimmered weakly, the chip on the emerald catching just enough brightness to flash green. I stared at it until the memory of my mother's hands came back. The way she'd polish it with the corner of her apron, the tiny hum she always made when lost in thought. She used to tell me, "Some things you carry because they remind you who you are." I understood now. Carrying it meant remembering her. Not the inheritance, not the fight, her. Still, one more thing had to be done. I picked up the phone. "It's done," I told Mr. Randall when he answered. "She gave it back." He paused, the faint scratch of papers that audible in the background. "Did she admit anything?" "Enough." He exhaled softly. "Then I'll send the formal revocation notice. The trust misuse can still be corrected, if she cooperates." "And if she doesn't?" I asked. "Then," he said, "we let the county clerk decide." His voice was calm, professional, but I could tell he was proud of how I'd handled it. After we hung up, I stood there a while, the phone still warm in my hand. I didn't want court. I didn't want headlines or family gossip. I just wanted silence, the kind that doesn't hum with betrayal. Morning crept in through my blinds, pale and forgiving. I found a new velvet box I'd bought months earlier, still wrapped in tissue. Not the old probate one. This one was soft gray, clean edges, no history attached. I placed the ring inside and closed the lid. Then I slid it into the top drawer of my writing desk, next to the letter my mother wrote me the week before she died. Her handwriting curved across the page, elegant even in her final days. "Be strong in quiet ways. The world notices eventually." That line used to sound like patience. Now it felt like prophecy. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A new message. Travis. The wedding's on pause. Indefinitely. Thank you for telling the truth. No emojis, no punctuation, just truth. I stared at the screen for a long time before locking it. Then I looked at the drawer where the ring rested and whispered, "Rest easy, Mom. It's home." The news spread slowly, like a paper cut you don't notice until it stings. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. In families like ours, gossip travels faster than Wi-Fi. It slips through phone calls, prayer chains, and Facebook comments under church picnic. Photos. By Monday morning, messages began trickling in. First from an old cousin in Knoxville, then from a neighbor who used to watch us after school. Then from one of Jenna's bridesmaids whose name I barely remembered from a barbecue 3 summers back. Most of them said the same thing. I had no idea. A few added, "You did the right thing," and 1 or 2 sent nothing but a heart emoji, small red punctures in my notifications that somehow felt louder than paragraphs. Jenna didn't message me. Not that day, not the next. But on the 3rd night, when the humidity hung thick and the cicadas outside my window sounded like static, my phone lit up with a voicemail icon. I pressed play. No greeting, just breathing. Ragged, hesitant. Then, finally, her voice, small but sharp around the edges. "You didn't have to humiliate me." Click. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just that. I stared at the phone for a long minute before pressing delete. Not out of anger. Anger would have meant I still needed her to understand. I deleted it because I'd already let her voice live rent-free in my mind long enough. Humiliation wasn't the goal. Truth was, and truth echoes longer than applause. The next morning, sunlight leaked across my kitchen table, catching the rim of my coffee mug. Mr. Randall's number appeared on my screen. "She's signed the trust correction documents," he said as soon as I answered. His tone was brisk but gentler than usual. "Funds will be returned from her private account within 2 weeks. No contest?" "None," he said. I could almost hear the faint smile behind the line. "I think your demonstration clarified things." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been rationing. It wasn't triumph, it was release, the quiet kind that softens the ribs from the inside. After we hung up, I sat for a while in the silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of the building settling. Mundane sounds that suddenly felt like proof the world kept moving even when family histories cracked open. I didn't tell many people what came next. Because it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic, it was quiet. 2 days after the transfer deadline, I drove out to Mom's old property, the one we'd sold the year she passed. The new owners had painted the shutters a hopeful shade of blue. A child's bike leaned against the porch rail, its chain glinting in the sun. A mason jar sat on the step, holding 1 tall sunflower and 3 wild daisies. Life had moved in. I stayed in the car, engine idling, ring resting cold and heavy in my palm. Its weight anchored me to the moment, to everything that had come before. Then I put the car in gear and drove on, down familiar roads that still smelled faintly of cut hay and rain. Our family burial plot sits just outside Franklin, tucked behind a low stone wall where pine trees sigh all day long. There's an old marble bench there, tilted, slightly to the right from years of weather. When I was little, Mom and I used to come here on Easter mornings. We'd plant tulips beside her parents' headstones and leave small notes rolled in string. She used to say, "The dead don't need flowers, honey. They need memory." I parked beneath the pines and followed the gravel path until I reached her marker. The granite was cool under my fingertips, the engraved letters catching flecks of late afternoon sun. Lillian Catherine Carter. Beloved mother. Fierce soul. Steady hand. "I got it back," I whispered. A breeze moved through the branches, low and steady, like approval. "She used your name like a shield," I said softly, but I turned it into a mirror. Somewhere nearby, a bird called once, then went quiet. The world held still long enough for the smell of pine sap and warm earth to mix into something almost holy. I stayed until the sunlight dipped below the tree line and the cemetery turned that honey gold color you only see in Tennessee. Half memory, half forgiveness. Before leaving, I took the velvet box from my purse and placed it at the base of her headstone. Not buried, just resting. A marker for closure, not possession. It wasn't about giving it up, it was about remembering what it carried. Later that week, Aunt Robin invited me to lunch at a cafe in East Nashville. The kind of place where the laminated menus are older than the waitresses and the air smells like fried catfish and coffee creamer. We sat in a corner booth under a faded photo of the Cumberland River. She waited until our iced teas arrived before speaking. "You didn't just return the ring to its rightful place," she said, stirring sugar into her glass. "You returned dignity to the whole family." "I didn't mean for it to be a spectacle." "It wasn't," she said firmly. "It was a reckoning. There's a difference." Her straw clinked against the ice. She looked out the window for a moment before adding, "You know, Travis's mother called me." My brows lifted. "Really?" "She said she admired your restraint." I almost laughed. She didn't seem like the type to admire me. Aunt Robin's smile tilted. She said, "That girl could have burned the whole evening down. Instead, she just turned on the lights." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just smiled and let the compliment rest where it landed. That weekend, I went to the farmer's market near the university. The air smelled like kettle corn and sun-warmed tomatoes. I wandered past tables stacked with homemade soaps, secondhand paperbacks, jars of honey so golden they looked lit from within. I bought a bar of lavender soap, a book with a cracked spine, and a slice of lemon chess pie that tasted almost exactly like Mom's. The vendor offered me a fork. "You'll want one of these," he said. I shook my head. "I'll manage." Because some things, when they're truly yours, you know how to handle without extra tools. News of Jenna filtered in through whispers. She'd moved in with a friend downtown. Travis had returned the engagement ring. She'd started posting again. Filtered skylines, long captions about growth through pain, healing energy, fresh starts, the kind of curated honesty people use to cover raw shame. I didn't follow her, but I didn't block her either. Not out of forgiveness, out of indifference. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't hiding from anything. A month later, on a morning thick with the scent of rain, I opened the drawer where the ring rested. Not for show, not for proof, for ritual. I took it out, turned it in my hand. The emerald caught a sliver of light, throwing green onto the wall like a small heartbeat. I held it a moment longer, then placed it into a new lockbox. A clean slate for something that no longer needed guarding. Next to it lay Mom's last letter. I slipped a notepaper beside it and wrote, in slow, even strokes, "She stole my story. I rewrote the ending." Then I closed the lid, felt the click of the lock settle deep in my chest, and set the key in the drawer. No revenge fantasies, no courtroom spectacle, just reality, reshaped into something bearable. It's strange how something so small can command so much gravity. How a ring the size of a penny can split open decades of memory or stitch them back together. But I didn't let it break me. I didn't ruin her. I just stopped protecting her from consequences. And somehow, that was enough. A few weeks passed, then a month. The buzz around the engagement dinner faded exactly the way I knew it would. Slowly, unevenly, like a paper cut you don't notice until the sting hits under hot water. Nashville moves that way. Fast whispers, slow forgiveness. The kind of city where secrets spread in coffee shops and get buried under live music noise by Friday. I didn't post. I didn't need to. My silence did the talking. The first messages came from family, distant cousins whose names still lived on Christmas card envelopes. Then from old neighbors who remembered my mom's porch swings and her blackberry cobbler. Then from one of Jenna's bridesmaids, a woman I could only half picture from a family barbecue, holding a drink and pretending not to watch the drama unfold. Most of them said the same thing. I had no idea. Some added, "You were brave." One or two sent nothing, just a single heart emoji or that silent yeah bubble that somehow felt louder than whole paragraphs. Jenna didn't message me. Not that day, not the next. But on the third night, long after midnight, when the heat outside had broken into a cool hush and the streetlights painted faint halos on the window glass, I got a voicemail. No hello, no preamble, just her breath, shaky, uneven. Then finally, "You didn't have to humiliate me." Click. That was it. I listened once, deleted it, not from anger, but from finality. I let her voice echo in my head long enough. Humiliation wasn't the point. Truth was. And truth, when it's real, doesn't fade. It reverberates. The next morning, I woke to sunlight pushing through the blinds, warm and thin like honey. The air smelled faintly of coffee and clean laundry. My phone buzzed on the counter. Mr. Randall. "She signed the trust correction forms," he said when I answered, his voice steady but softer than usual. Funds will be returned from her private account within 2 weeks. No contest? I asked. None. I think your demonstration clarified things. I let out a breath that wasn't triumph, just release. Like my lungs had been waiting for permission. After we hung up, I stood by the window for a while, watching the mail truck crawl down the street. The ordinary hum of life went on. A neighbor's dog barking, the whir of a lawnmower, someone playing blues guitar faintly through an open garage door. The world hadn't paused for my reckoning. It just kept spinning, slowly at first, then the way it always had. I went back to work, back to early morning meetings, grocery runs, emails stacked like bricks, folding laundry with cicadas screaming outside my window, paying bills, cleaning coffee rings from the counter. The world stayed ordinary, but I didn't. There was a stillness in me now, a quiet that didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like alignment. Then, one evening as summer thinned into fall and the light turned that deep burnt orange, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in a familiar script that tugged at old instincts. Jenna. The air smelled like wet leaves. I sat on the porch with a cup of mint tea cooling between my palms and opened it slowly. The letter inside was short, written in uneven lines. Lauren. I can't explain what I did. Not in a way that would make you forgive me. Maybe I just wanted something that reminded me of her, something that made me feel chosen, even if I wasn't. But I see now that I didn't just take a ring. I took her memory from you. I rewrote it with my name, my story. I thought I could carry it better. I was wrong. You made that clear. And you did it without cruelty. That's what I keep thinking about. How quiet your revenge was. How honest. I don't expect you to call or forgive, but I wanted to tell you I returned the money, and I'm not taking anything else that isn't mine. J. The paper trembled slightly in the breeze. I read it twice, then folded it once, then again, and slipped it into the lockbox with the ring and Mom's letter. 2 pieces of paper, 2 stories, 2 sisters, 1 legacy, finally laid down correctly. A week later, another envelope arrived, this time postmarked from Brentwood. Inside was a printed photo, matte, not glossy. A real photograph, the kind you can feel the grain of beneath your fingertips. It was from that night. I hadn't known anyone had taken a picture. In it, I was standing beneath the floral arch, microphone in hand, paper held steady. My expression calm, deliberate. Behind me, Jenna sat, eyes lowered, her fiancé blurred in motion, half turned toward her. The chandelier above caught a glint in the emerald ring resting in my palm. On the back, written in looping pen, she didn't scream, she didn't beg, she just won. No signature, but I knew the handwriting. Travis's mother. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That night, I pulled the ring out once more, sat under the same chandelier light that had fractured my heart weeks before. The emerald caught the glow, throwing soft green shards across the table. But this time, the light didn't splinter. It held. I turned it between my fingers. The chip along one edge caught against my thumb. Once, that imperfection used to ache like loss. Now it felt like truth, proof that even broken things can still shine. I placed it back in the box, slow and certain. The lid clicked shut, but it didn't sound like an ending. It sounded like balance. There are things you fight to keep, not for their value, but for what someone tried to erase when they took them. Because when someone steals a piece of you, they're not just after what you own. They're after the version of you who believed you could be taken from. They didn't just take an object. They tried to rewrite you. But the thing about truth is, it has patience. It waits in quiet corners until the noise dies down. And when the light finally hits it, it tells its story all by itself. That's what Jenna did. She told on herself. All I had to do was wait and shine a little light. So I didn't ruin her. I didn't even hate her. I just told the truth in front of the right people at the right moment. And the silence that followed, that was the part that healed me. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.